When I first discovered f1.8, it felt like magic. The world behind my subject melted away. This is what real photography must be, I thought. But over time that blur became a veil. It erased context, hid stories and held me back until I realized something important. Shooting wide open all the time didn't just limit my photography, it almost destroyed it. And this is the story of how I found my way through. When I first started with photography, I had no idea what aperture or f-stops even were. I shot in auto mode, letting the camera decide everything for me, and I was simply happy that I was able to capture everything that I saw. But as months passed, I felt the pull to go deeper. I kept seeing those stunning photos on social media and in books, portraits and scenes with creamy out-of-focus backgrounds. And I knew I wanted that too. To get there, I needed to learn. I needed to move beyond auto mode and take full control of my camera. That's when I discovered Aperture, and with it, the magic of f1.8. At the time, I didn't own a lens that could open that far, but the moment I bought my first prime, the Sony 50mm f1.8, I was hooked. Suddenly, the world behind my subject melted away. Every frame felt cinematic, professional, almost otherworldly. I was obsessed. Whenever I stepped outside with my camera, the first thing I did was to spin the dial down to f1.8. The following year, I upgraded to the Sony 85mm f1.8 and the blur became even creamier, the separation even stronger. For me, there was nothing else that mattered, just my subject wide open at f1.8 and everything else dissolved into softness. But beneath the beauty, something subtle and dangerous was happening. f1.8 was slowly training my hands to always reach for it. It became a veil, a habit that blinded me to everything else that photography could be. It was like walking into a vast forest, but only ever seeing a single tree in front of me, while all the richness and complexity around me remained hidden. While shooting wide open began as pure excitement, repeating the same thing again and again went against what photography is meant to be. It went against what art itself is. Art is exploration, both inward and outward. And when one path has been fully explored, the artist, like an explorer in a forest, must venture deeper into newer and unfamiliar places. That's when I began to understand. What once felt like magic was, in truth, quietly holding me back. What I started to see was that wide open blur, as beautiful as it seemed, was stealing something from my photos. It stripped away the world around my subject, leaving me with nothing but isolation. At first that felt powerful, a person cut out of the noise, floating in a creamy haze. It made everyone look like a hero, like a slice from a movie cut out from real life. But after a while, it began to feel empty. There was no sense of place, no context, no layers of meaning that could carry the story forward. The entirety of my portfolio was like listening to a song with only one note. You hear it, but it doesn't move you. And the more I relied to the f1.8, the less I paid attention to the rest of the frame. I stopped noticing the lines that could guide the eye, the tension in the background, the way multiple elements could collide to create a decisive moment. Shallow depth of field had become my shortcut, one that kept me from learning how to truly see. If you enjoyed the video so far, hit the like button and consider subscribing with a bell. The problem with shortcuts is that they don't just hide complexity, they hide possibility. By shooting everything at f1.8, I wasn't teaching myself to wait for the right moment. Any moment could work because the blur erased the surrounding story. A person walking down the street at f1.8, so what? Who are they? Where are they going? What are they about to do? I don't know. And that's why I don't care. When everything else disappears, so does the anticipation, the tension, and the release. The moment that all the elements in the frame align and the photograph finally comes to life. I began to realize that what makes a photo powerful isn't just the subject, but the way the world around them interacts with them. A shadow or an arrow pointing towards their stride. A line on the pavement guiding the eye. A passerby or two entering the frame just at the right time. A true photographer isn't the one who hides what they don't like. A true photographer knows what to reveal, what to emphasize, and how to arrange chaos so that what once felt distracting now makes sense inside the frame. It took me years to understand this. Photography isn't just about who we are pointing our camera at. It's about where, when, and why, the invisible connections that give meaning to what we see. There was another problem at f1.8 that I didn't notice at first. A problem with the images themselves. Shooting wide open leaves only the thinnest slice of the frame in focus. Just a breath too far forward or back and the moment is gone. On the back of the camera everything looked fine, even when I zoomed in. But later on my computer the truth appeared. Soft eyes, fading details, images that should have felt sharp and alive fall apart under closer inspection. So I began experimenting, stopping down little by little, f2.8, f4, f5.6, and suddenly something clicked. My images weren't just sharper, they had more depth, more life. The background didn't disappear completely, but it joined the story. Even when I kept the subject in focus, the world around them began to matter again. What I didn't expect was how much stopping down would change not just my photos, but the way I saw. At f5.6 or f8, I couldn't rely on the blur to do the work for me anymore. Every element in the frame demanded attention, the background, the lines, the light, the balance of shapes and spaces. Suddenly I wasn't just photographing a subject, but I was composing the world around them. It was humbling at first, almost overwhelming. But slowly it taught me discipline. I began to notice how a shadow could lead the eye, how a figure in the distance could add tension, how negative space could give breathing room to the scene. Stopping down forced me to stop rushing, to wait, to observe, to treat the frame like a canvas where every brushstroke mattered. That's when I began to treat photography less like hunting and more like fishing. Wide open at f1.8, I was firing shots quickly, hoping that the blur would make something stand out. But f5.6, f8 or f11 felt different. It was like casting a line and waiting for all the elements to come into place. The light, the subject, the background, the timing. I wasn't chasing moments so much anymore, but I was letting them come to me. And just like fishing, patience became part of the process. Sometimes I would wait in the same spot for minutes, watching as people passed, noticing how they interacted with their environment. One frame would be too busy, another one would be too empty, but then the right person, the right stride, the right alignment would fall into place. Click, and that was the catch. Over time, this mindset changed the way I approached my scenes. The frame wasn't just a window anymore, but a net. And my job wasn't to fill it with blur, but to let the right details swim into place. f1.8 was never the enemy though. Like any tool, it has its moment, its purpose. The problem wasn't the f1.8 itself, but my reliance on it. Once I stepped back, I began to see where the shallow depth of field could shine, not as a crutch, but as a choice. And that made all the difference. When I stopped leaning at f1.8 as my default, I rediscovered its real magic. Wide open works best when isolation is the story. When you want all the noise to fall away so the viewer connects only with your subject. A single face in a crowded street. A subject framed by an out-of-focus foreground element. Those are the moments when depth of field can cut through chaos like a spotlight. It also shines when the world itself feels too heavy, too busy. At f1.8 I could strip a scene down to its essence, letting everything else fade into suggestion. And of course there are the practical times. Low light, late at night, when the aperture isn't just a choice but a necessity to keep the image alive. But the difference now was intention. I wasn't using f1.8 because it looked cinematic, I was using it because the story demanded it. What I understood is that every aperture carries its own way of seeing. Wide open gives you focus, but stop down gives you the possibility of deeper creation. One whispers about the subject, the other reveals the world they belong to. And photography at its heart needs both. For me, the real change came when I stopped asking the question, how do I make this look impressive? And started asking the question, how do I make this look alive? That's when aperture stopped being just a number on the dial and became a part of the story itself. So whether you're at f1.8 or f8, the real question isn't what looks good, it's what serves the story you want to tell. And that choice is what transforms photography into something more. Have you ever found yourself stuck at f1.8? And if so, how did you move past this phase? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and consider subscribing with a bell. Now, if you want to see how my photography changed completely when I stopped chasing nice photos, click and watch this video next. That was all for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you on the streets. Bye bye.